Well, I think it's time.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. So welcome to the session, and we're going to present you some, different concepts comparing to what it seems to do, like doing a Scrum every single day. We have a different approach that we call evidence that we use as a coaching technique. We've been using it since 2013, so there's a lot of things to discuss and case studies to show.
Sorry, Marcos.
Yeah.
Marcos. Para los que quieran tener una traducción simultánea, pueden cliquear en el mundito que dice interpretación y elegir el lenguaje español.
Nice. Now that I saw the menu right down there. This is good. Okay. I'm thinking what happens if I click on that one too.
Sorry. You can continue.
No, that's fine. All right. So then the first thing that we want to talk about is, well, when we look at what's happening, the agile landscape out there, it's clear that right now it's not only IT anymore. So teams all over the company are adopting, Scrum or any other form of agility. And this is actually bringing a lot of benefits, but also it brings a lot of problems. And one of the things that we see all the time is that, well, there's no way to adopt agility if you're not doing it in all 4 knowledge domains that we have here. So basically, there was one that was missing there, but that's fine, no problem. That's it. So there's no way to adopt agility if you're not doing this using all 4 knowledge domains. So people are talking about scaling, people are talking about adopting agility in, different areas like legal teams, marketing teams, sales. It doesn't matter. Whatever that is not IT is becoming agile right now, even HR. But then if we don't do that all over the company, probably we're not going to succeed. And then how to build high-performing teams if we don't have a perfect formula that we can apply over and over again, to all teams that we know. And it doesn't matter where they're coming from. So first thing is that to be successful, you got to start with the foundation. If you don't get the foundation right, you cannot spread agility all over the company. And this is a very key concept here because, it's about understanding the real agile, what we call the true agile. It's really about understanding what it means and what are going to have to change in our companies so we can succeed. So people just try, agility by installing tools like Jira or any other tools. You don't start with a tool. And this is a problem that we got to solve. So then when you look at the agile transformation process, one of the first things that people actually do is let's install Jira and let's say that we are agile. Well, it's not exactly about that. It's a cultural transformation. We're changing the way that we think, the way that we hire people, the way we promote people, the way they're actually organized inside our companies. We're changing everything. It's not about adopting tools only, but this is usually what people do. Then some teams are actually, doing a Scrum for like quite some time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But they didn't actually transform yet. They're just like repeating the process without knowing the whys behind it. It's a very common thing. So we've been doing coaching for quite some time. And this is one of the first things that we actually realized, that people are doing it without knowing what it means. They're just repeating things they heard, and then it's not going to work. So if we don't work with the organizational redesign, you're not going to get it done. You're not going to succeed. You're not going to get to the other side of the bridge. So this is the true agile land. This is the destination when it comes to the agile transformation process. But then talking about high-performing teams, there's a few elements here that we need to cover. So you need to understand how to get there. The first one, of course, they must be stable. Stable means you're in one team and one team only. We don't want you to keep moving to other teams. It's not going to work. And this is a very common thing that we see in many, many companies out there, that people just simply, by the end of the project, I'm going to say, okay, so John is going to go to team A, Mary is going to go to team B. It's not exactly how we do that. We're not supposed to do that. So project-oriented companies are always doing this. So stability is a key process when it comes to the whole idea of having high-performing teams. The second one, how to be cross-functional. Cross-functional, a very simple definition of being cross-functional is you have no external dependencies. No external dependencies. It means we're going to control the whole process. We're not going to have any handovers or not forwarding work to anyone else. No external dependencies. This is another key process here. The third one, long-lived. You do not dismantle the team by the end of the project. You don't send people away. What happens is that for as long as you can, you should keep that group of people together. Teams are not something that you destroy at the end of the project. Let's keep working for years and years. The best teams that I know, they've been working together for 5 to 7 years. And then some people say, well, if we're doing this, they're not going to be really motivated because they don't see anything new. You can give them new projects. You can give them new challenges, but keep those, guys together, and then we're going to succeed. Another one, dedicated. Well, this is a very important one because I don't know if you guys saw that. I'm pretty sure you do. You see that every single day. We have 5 projects, 6 projects at a time, 7 projects at a time. I see people being the scrum master of like 5 teams at the same time. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. You're not going to create a high-performing team if you cannot be dedicated to one team and one team only, if you don't have like several projects at the same time. If you do have several projects at the same time, it's simply not going to work. But this is like the most common thing we see out there. And then finally, small, because, more people means a more complicated environment. Complexity grows exponentially. So we want to keep teams, as like tiny as we can. The new Scrum guide, by the way, that is going to be released in 1 or 2 weeks, talks about 10 people or less. So then it's not a big group of people. We've seen like teams with 25 folks. There's no way to get 25 people and say they do form a team. It's impossible and it doesn't work. And of course, the last one, they steadily improves, continuous improvement process. If you have all those 6 things in place, you're in a good shape. You're in a very nice, path to become agile, and your teams are going to succeed, with a pretty good chance to get to the other side. But then it's not enough. In many, many companies, this is not enough. It should be enough. It is not, because there's a bunch of cultural issues that we got to work on, that we got to, settle and fix. So, for example, one of the main problems that we have, and I'm talking about cross-functional teams again, it's the problem that traditional coordination preaches the idea that we should have functional teams, and then no one is controlling the entire development process. The result of that is a bunch of dependencies. The dotted lines that you can see in this image here, they do represent, dependencies. The problem with this, everything is extremely slow. So I'll give you one example. Let's say the development team here, they're doing 2-week sprints. Then they forward whatever is done to the test or QA team, and they're going to do 2-week sprints as well. Then they forward to the integration team that will get parts of other teams to put it all together, and they also do 2-week sprints. Then we're going to forward finally to the operations team, and they also do 2-week sprints, and they are the ones shipping to the client, to the customer. How long it takes on average to get things done in a scenario like that? It takes, of course, 8 weeks. But when you look at the right side, a cross-functional team doing 2-week sprints would need only 2 weeks to get things done because they don't have external dependencies. It's 4 times. You're reducing, time to market by 4 times. It's extremely important. People usually don't do that. They're afraid of trying this because they're going to, redesign the whole organization. But then just call them squads and it's going to work because, squad is let's call everyone a squad and then people follow something called the Spotify model that is actually not even a model. So the path to agility is full of pitfalls, it's full of issues, full of problems, and we got to start solving each one of those. So then, to start with the teams, we got to do something to start moving the needle, to start helping them. Well, we need them to learn, and to learn as fast as they can. So the challenge here, and this is the main message in this talk, the challenge here is how can we speed up the learning process? Because we all always hear the same thing. Oh, we're too busy to improve. We need to speed up the learning process. We need to shorten the path so they can become agile, truly agile. So we got to do that, and we got to do that as soon as we can. So changing this is a key process. When you think about knowledge over time, well, one thing is really clear: that knowledge over time, grows like this. It flows like that. But then the main issue that we've been talking about here is that by the time the team is here, we call the project done, we send them away, we don't have a team anymore. So they don't have time to learn. They don't have time to evolve. They're too busy to evolve. And that becomes a problem. There's one thing, the rally, the survey with 89,000 people, there's one thing that we learned from that survey is that teams running 1 week sprints, they're actually better. They're more productive, and responsiveness is always better. So as you can see, 1 week sprints are really good. And then if you look at the Scrum Guide, the Scrum Guide says you can do 30 days or less. They don't talk about sprints in weeks. The Scrum Guide does not mention weeks. It's 30 days or less. So can we do a 29-day sprint? Yeah, probably we can, because it's 30 days or less. Can we do a 4-day sprint? Yeah. Can we do 1-day sprint? Maybe this is the secret. And why this is the secret? Because those teams are learning as fast as they can by running 1 week sprints. Can we do less than 1 week? So the principle behind it is that when you reduce the sprint length, every single bottleneck you have will explode. Things you're trying to hide. Even if you're not trying, things you're hiding because you have a lot of time, they're going to be there in front of you. So what we need to try is to run really short sprints, perhaps less than 1 week. So then with that thing in our mind, we're thinking what it takes to be agile. Well, short cycles, and of course, continuous improvement. So short cycles, once again, 30 days or less. Continuous improvement, or really famous retrospective meeting, we can do that. So then in 2013, we tried something completely different. What if we try 1-day sprints? Perhaps it could make sense. We can try planning meeting in the morning, 9 a.m., daily scrum right after lunch. By 5 p.m., a quick review meeting, a quick retrospective, whatever is done goes live. Next day, another sprint. Perhaps we can try that. So actually, we did it. We did it, and it looks pretty much like this. This is 1 week. So what happens here is that we have a check-in. There is a very simple check-in just to show the people, how the process will look like. So there's some housekeeping that is needed, during Monday to make sure that the team is empowered to do whatever they want to do. They're going to be protected. No one will be interrupting the team. They have a nice environment to work. So we use the first day just to prepare everything. Then it's exactly what I mentioned. We have 4 days running planning meeting in the morning, development, a quick checkpoint that looks a lot like our daily scrum, then developing again. By the end of the day, review, retrospective. And now we have another day, another sprint. So we can do, following this model, 4 sprints in a week. It looks very simple, and it is extremely simple. But what is the secret behind this technique? First of all, well, challenges that we're going to face, backlog items are too big. So now we have an opportunity to get a coach specialized in product management to teach the product owner how to slice items in tiny parts, always from the business perspective. So slicing becomes a key process here. Product owners are usually not really good on slicing. Now they're going to have to learn. Otherwise, nothing fits in one day. I see people saying that 1 week sprints are not enough because we don't know how to slice. Try to fit it in one day. You have to fit it in one day. So then slicing becomes a key process. And then the product owners learning how to slice from the business perspective with the help, from a coach. Another thing that happens is that any dysfunctional behavior will have a huge impact on the performance of the team. So we cannot allow dysfunctional behaviors to happen. So we need to coach the Scrum Master, soft skills, facilitation technique, conflict resolution, so we can speed up the whole process and avoid, disruptions. The way that we run the process, we always have at least 2 coaches with a team. One is looking at the product owner to help with the product decisions. The other one is looking at the Scrum Master and the development team to help them with the work. So the way we apply this technique is always based on at least 2 coaches at the same time. By the end of the last day, we have what we call a big retrospective and also a big review meeting. So we invite the whole company to see results. And then it's a moment where people look and say, wow, I didn't know that you guys could release every single day. And they actually do. They do release every single day. So up to this point, we used it with more than 350 teams all over the world. We did it in Mexico. We did it in the US a lot, in Europe, in Brazil. There's one thing that happened every single time. The learning curve changes dramatically. It changes by a lot. Teams are not learning like this anymore. During that specific week, this is the learning curve. Because once again, when you reduce the sprint length, what happens is that we actually learn faster. And usually all those bottlenecks are hidden. They will explode so we can measure, so we can fix them. So EVDnC is a very simple coaching technique applied by 2 coaches with 1 team. Once again, one looking at the product, another one looking at, the process. And what we want to do is to show them how, the real agile environment looks like. So first thing that we got to do is to protect the team so they have no interruptions. And by protecting the team, even in a company that is not 100% agile, they're going to have an opportunity to try that in a controlled environment, of course. But once again, they learn extremely fast. And by learning extremely fast, even if this is not actually sustainable in the long run, because no one would be running 1-day sprints forever, the amount of knowledge they acquire in 1 week is pretty much what they would get in 3 months. So the main goal here is just to speed up this learning process. So for example, the first time that we did it, that was in 2013, we had this fleet management company in Brazil, in the north part of Brazil, and they had a pain point. The pain point was they couldn't release anything to production for 9 months. Can you imagine a team that is 9 months trying to release and they cannot because of technical issues, because of all sorts of problems? So that was the case. And then I was talking to the CEO and the guy said, do you have a solution for that? Because I'm thinking about firing them all. And I said, well, let's just, shorten the sprint length and let's see what happens, because then we can find the bottlenecks, because right now, no one knows why they cannot release. So this is what we did. And by doing that, we decided to do, evidence for 1 week. And the result of that, they did 6 releases in 4 days. 6 releases in 4 days. What happened in this scenario was that they had a bunch of dependencies, and then when we protected them, they were able to do the work. They couldn't work. They were stuck in meetings all the time. They were stuck with technical problems. And we said, listen, let's just ship the minimum amount of things that we can ship. Let's just slice features, because you guys are working on features that the feature will be done in 3 months. This is not okay. What is the minimum amount of value that we can deliver today? So the product owner finally learned how to slice things. The Scrum Master didn't know how to facilitate meetings. The Scrum Master had no soft skills. And then there was a coach sitting with the Scrum Master, helping the Scrum Master to do so. But the most important thing in this case was the company was going bankrupt, because if you cannot deliver in 9 months, you're going to disappear. And another thing that I saw, I was attending a meeting with the IT manager and the CEO and the sales manager. And then the IT manager was telling the sales manager, please stop selling. If you keep selling, if you add more trucks to the system will implode. We're going to disappear. The whole thing will stop working. The system was a patchwork. So we decided to design everything from scratch. And in 1 week, they had 6 releases. The system was working again. So this is basically the type of result that we get every time we run this process. 5 things usually happen when we do that. Number 1, once again, people learn faster. Second, every single bottleneck you have will explode, so you're going to be able to treat them. Third, people will feel motivated, because finally they're going to be able to run a process that they do control, especially in traditional companies, big companies. Number 4, what happens is that they try things they were not empowered to try before. Management never allows anyone to use different technologies. Let's try. No one is watching. You guys are in a controlled environment. We actually sell data management as a training process. It's a class that takes 5 days, but they're actually working on real items from their own backlogs. And item number 5, the final result is they don't want to go back to the hybrid approach they used to take. This is usually what happens. So now we have another case study that we want to share with you guys. So this insurance company is a Brazilian insurance company. It's one of the top 2, and it's such a big company, and they're trying to adopt Scrum all over the company, everyone at the same time. That we all know that's usually a big mistake. And then this is the team taking care of risk inspections. So what we did was that in 5 days, we were able to reduce the lead time by 98% to do a risk inspection. Usually it used to take 48 hours to do a risk inspection. So we were doing continuous improvement on the process during those 5 days of the evidence. And by the end of the week, the process that used to take 48 hours was taking less than an hour. And then when we asked, why you guys didn't do that before? And they said, because we're too busy with so many things to do that we cannot actually focus on one activity at a time. The problem with that team, they were working on 5, 6 items at the same time. So nothing gets done. And of course, the too busy to improve that we always see all the time, everywhere. So another example of, how to speed up everything and get faster and better results. So now Ximena and Fernanda will share the next one. They're going to explain this one. Go ahead.
Marcus, we have a few questions here in our chat, so would you
Okay.
like to take a look at them before we go ahead?
Yeah, let me take a look. Oh, okay. So what we do during the evidence is that, first of all, regarding the time needed to run those meetings, a planning meeting in a one-day sprint takes 5 to 15 minutes. You're not planning the whole week. You're just planning one day. So yeah, you're going to have more meetings, but it takes this amount of time. So then they don't feel tired because they're not stuck in a room for like 2 hours. It takes 5 to 15 minutes. They're planning what they're going to do until the end of the day. So that changes that perception for sure, especially because they're not sitting there for hours and hours and hours. I think that the worst thing you can do is to run 4-week sprints where the planning meeting takes 8 hours. That is boring. No one wants to do that. But 5 to 15 minutes a day, nah, you can easily do that. And the retrospective meeting is pretty much the same thing. It's really quick because we're talking about what we did today. And then it does not feel that bad, actually. I think that helps a lot by running daily sprints. But once again, they're going to be running more meetings, but using just a little bit of time. The planning meeting looks like a daily scrum, by the way, the amount of time needed. The other question that we have, technical design process. Yeah, well, when we're coaching them, we use emergent design, and emergent design means the solution will be created as we go. And usually when we get items from their backlogs to work on, we usually get items that are independent or that wouldn't need like a huge amount of time designing. Otherwise, we would spend more time designing than actually doing. So we have to work with the product owner to prioritize items that we can actually deliver value in one day. If it's like a huge design phase, it wouldn't work with evidence. So for the learning process, we try to get simple things but with higher return on investment, but things that does not require a lot of planning phases or, designing phases. Okay. The other one that we have for teams that are not co-located, well, this is the next example that Fernanda and Ximena will share because the teams that we had a chance to work in the last 2 weeks, and it just happened, they were not co-located. So it was our first version of evidence online using Zoom, as a way to communicate, and they're going to share the results of that as well. Monday, going back to Monday, what we do Monday is just warming up, making sure that we have everything we need, explaining how the process works, getting people motivated, looking at the backlog to see if the backlog is well sliced and if it's enough to make things fit in one day. You can actually call it a big refinement meeting. It's refinement plus explaining how the process works and making sure they're on board. So first day is usually a big planning day for us. All right, this is it.
All right. Okay, so Ximena and I.
Spanish if you want. That's fine.
No, because I think we are going to mess up the translation. So maybe it's better to continue in English. We have our sessions in Spanish this Thursday, so I think we start Spanish there. Anyway, so I think it would be interesting here to share with you about this case with a little bit more detail because it's really fresh. So it's a result of something that we did like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So guys, imagine that you are in the biggest bank of Latin America. So you can Google it, you'll find the name. It's a Brazilian bank, orange with blue. Anyway, so imagine that you are in this environment and it's a very complex environment, thousands of employees, a huge approval process for anything you want to do. So there are lots of people, head of this, head of that, head of whatever, lots of heads that have to approve if you want to buy a pencil. So imagine also that, you know, in this place where, in this complex company where you have so many levels of hierarchy, you also have a huge problem, which is dependency. So you're talking about a Frankenstein here, right? So I have to confess, and I think that, you know, Ximena she was together with me on this, so she saw everything. Like, before we started the work, before we run the evidence with this team during 1 week, I was, you know, I was the one negotiating with the customer about dates and which are going to be the teams that are going to participate of this. And I was with my energy like totally low. I was like, this is not gonna work. These guys don't want to go through this process. They don't want this experience, you know? And then we were like asking ourselves, okay, so why are we there? Well, the answer was like, well, HR had some budget, you know, to spend on training and and, you know, experiences like that from external partners. And they wanted to bring something different to the teams to speed up their delivery process. So these were technology teams, by the way. And then we were like, well, okay, so if the teams don't want, they were pushed against this experience. And it is a complex environment, lots of people to approve the most simple things. And there is a high dependency between teams to deliver things and get something to production in the hand of the customer. We're like, okay, so let's maybe, you know, use this experience for us as well, as a playground to experiment things as well with these teams and try to bring them the most well, a great experience where they could extract lots of learning out of this week, you know. So let's see what we can bring and what we can share with them. Let's see, because I mean, we should not expect anything because they're not motivated with this experience, right? So we had some meetings, some pre-meetings before the evidence with the teams, because, you know, again, considering the environment, I thought it was relevant to do some alignment with the team so that they could know exactly what to expect out of that week. So we did all these things and they were like complaining about the dependency problems, their technical environments where they were supposed to develop things, where all the time they were out, they were not working. So that delayed a lot in their deliverables and things like that. And we're like, okay, so let's go and let's see. So at the first day, we did like our kickoff, our traditional kickoff, explaining everything, how it was going to work, understanding with the product owner what would be the tiniest, the carpaccio slice, you know, that we could work on to deliver in 1 day. And then they were like, of course, that the first slice was not as thin, not as a, you know, a carpaccio that we would like to have. It was big enough. And of course, that at the end of the first day, it was, the team was frustrated because they could not, you know, deliver. Okay, next day, the same thing. And then throughout the process, during the week, what happened was like some sort of contrary effect of what we were expecting, because actually we're not expecting anything. So we got there with zero expectations on the process. And then in the middle of the week, what happened was total engagement to this process, to this framework, to this way of working. The teams started to get exhausted, of course, because it's not, I mean, I would risk to say that it's not sustainable to say that you can keep this rhythm, daily sprints, like forever. So it's very tiring. But in the middle of the week, that was, you know, the magic happens. Total engagement, motivation, people like moving mountains, moving whatever it was needed to make it work and to deliver. their solutions, their technical solutions, as far as they could go. Because again, we're talking about a very complex environment, as I said, and developing something and shipping it out to production, to the hand of the customer, in fact, so that they could use, was not something possible for daily sprints, considering their context, right, Sime? So what happened was that our agreement with them, our definition of done was like, okay, what is the farthest place where you can go? What is the best you can do in one day? How far you can go in one day? So at the end of the week, they were like, can you move the slides, Marcos, please? Okay, so that was the result that we got. 50% lead time reduction until acceptance. So again, it's not production, it's not a product being used by a customer, but it was a huge achievement considering the context, considering the environment where this team was working, right? So again, many people having to approve if you need to buy a pencil. So imagine to put something out to production. So this was the effect that we caused in this team in 1 week. So the perception and all the learnings that if they have a clear focus, again, as Marco said, if they're working at one thing at a time, if they are working as a team, collaborating and exchanging what they know with each other as well, and using like collective intelligence to build better solutions, that's the magic that can work, So when we got at the big review and big retrospective on Friday, it was incredible and really kind of emotional for everyone, because of course everyone was very, very tired, and they're like, their brains were melting, like, please, enough. Let's get back to our reality. But then at the end, at the same time this was happening and they were tired, at the same time they were like, we can't go back to the way we used to work. I mean, this has so much more purpose, and the priority is much clearer. The slices are thinner, so it's easy to make deliverables every day. So we feel like we are really part of the solution. We can see the product being developed and evolving. So
yeah, and fair. We also want to stress, and again, that it's an extreme learning process. It's extreme agile, but it's extreme learning. And it gets people moving in ways we can't even imagine. And the thing that we create a safe environment for them to experiment, that's magical. Because we have been simple things like, why don't we do today some pair programming or mock programming? Or why don't we invite a client along to the review? Simple things make a whole lot of difference with this kind of environment. These teams needed to change the scenery. So that's what we did. So I think that the importance of keep it simple and crush into the learning curve, that's the powerful thing about evidence.
All right. So let me just say something about this last evidence that we did with this huge bank. By the end of the process, when you look at people and say, okay, so what did you guys learn? They had a huge list of things. And the general feeling is that we learned more in 1 week than in 6 months in the bank. More in 1 week than in 6 months. It's not because they actually learned more, it's because it's so intense, but they did learn a lot. It's not exactly 6 months, but they were, for the very first time in their career, they were able to try things that managers wouldn't allow them to do. And there's another case study that we didn't plan to talk about here, and because at NDAs we cannot really talk about that, but there's a beverage company, one of the biggest in the world, that we did evidence with a team designing a new product. Unfortunately, we cannot talk about, a lot of details of that, but they were planning a new product, and we decided to do, instead of daily sprints, 1-day sprints, we decided to run sprints taking 2 hours only. So we had several sprints every single day. 5 minutes planning, let's go for 2 hours, 5 minutes review, 5 minutes retrospective meeting. Let's go back and do it again and again and again. And they did it for, 5 days. The result of that was that they planned a new product in 4 days that usually would take 9 months. So that was, the feedback from management. We did it in 4 days, what usually takes 9 months to complete. And once again, why this is actually possible? Because we are removing the company, the whole structure, hierarchy, bottlenecks, everything. We're keeping everything away from the team. And finally, they have space to work so they can do the things that they always wanted to do. There's one problem with this technique, though, because Monday morning, the week after evidence, they go back to the bureaucratic world that they had before, and that may be complicated when it comes to motivation. So that's why when we do evidence, we always do evidence with a few weeks of coaching right after, just to help them to keep the pace, to keep motivation levels high, and to help the company to start removing those roadblocks. So, because we just proved a week ago that your teams can be 4, 5, 6 times faster. You want that forever? So get out of the way and let them shine. So usually the agile transformation is extremely empowered or, reinforced when we do evidence as a way to show that your teams are great. The problem is the bureaucratic environment that we have here. All right. So with that, and this is what we had to present when it comes to case studies. And now we have a last one here that Ximena, you're gonna do this one, right? Oh yeah. So this is what happens in the evidence. Go ahead.
What happens in the evidence? What do we have as a learning? Which are our quick wins and longer term wins? And here we want to focus on each role. If we are, as Marcos was already saying, some of our coaches are focusing on the product owner and on the product, and others are focusing on the process and helping the Scrum Master. So if we look at the product owner, the short-term wins are we help him or her effectively slice items, carpaccio mode, and focus on the problem, not that much on the solution. And then in the longer run, we help them and teach them how to use KPIs to maximize the return of investment. If the Scrum Master point of view, we are facilitating and helping him or her to conduct more efficient retrospectives and learn more about the facilitation process as a whole. And in the longer run, that brings along the importance of continuous improvement to build high-performance teams. If we look at the development team itself, then we want to highlight the importance of automated tests and DevOps practices. And in the longer run, they learn by heart that continuous delivery is a standard, is a must. And again, we have to talk to the management. What do we teach them? What do we convince them about? Is that this management has to embrace this idea of servant leadership as the way, imagine it. A leader that listens, that has empathy, that helps the team grow. And in the long run, we help the management understand what true agile means. It's not about Jira, it's not about tools, it's not about frameworks, it's about culture. And with all the people involved, us included, we build all this magical thing based on 3 pillars: focus on value, short cycles, and continuous improvement. And if we can work around these 3 simple elements, we will get teams, people, teams, and organizations that will be much more productive.
All right, this is a very good thing, actually. So it's not, as I was writing there on our chat area, it's not magic. It's just what really happens when you're not feeling the pressure from management, when you do what you know in a fast-paced environment, and of course, with the aid of coaches helping you along the way. If you want to learn more about evidence, it's actually pretty easy. You guys can try if you want. All you need to do is to visit this page here, evidence.org. Just go there. There's a guide that you can download and follow the steps so you can apply with your own teams. And if you're, a coach or a consultant, you can use with your customers. The main thing here is that a fast-paced environment based on learning, continuous learning and continuous improvement, there's no way to get it wrong. There's no way to make mistakes that, are going to destroy productivity. It's exactly the opposite. You protect the teams and they respond right away. All right. I think our time's up. I don't know if we have time for questions or not. I'm not sure. I think time's up. Yes.
Yes.
So we gotta go.
Maybe three minutes for one question.
Okay, one question. Anyone with a question? I got a few, so I can ask question.
Hi, Marcos. This is Mauri. I have a question. What to do after that experience? Because, okay, looks interesting. I could probably talk with my boss or whatever and say, let's go to try that for a week, 2 weeks, or whatever that we want. But what's next?
Right. What's next is, as we're gonna get the things that the team learned along the way. We're gonna sit with management, and then we're gonna start promoting changes in the company. So we're gonna sit with senior management and say, hey, listen, this is what your team can achieve. You want this, from this point on. So we're gonna have to change A, B, C, D, and E in the company. So we use evidence as a form of assessment, thinking about agile transformation. So what's next about evidence? Fundamental change that we got to do in the company so they can adopt agility the right way. So this is usually what we do. It's evidence is nothing more than an excuse to get people motivated and get a company transformed. It's basically that.
Marcos, and let's say that if we want to keep on talking about this, they can find us in Discord, and we can continue this conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Bring your wine and let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. This is good. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we can do a one-day sprint.
Oh yeah, let's do it now. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, my friend. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Thanks for your help.
Very
Bye-bye.
interesting. I love the presentation.
Oh, thanks.